Good afternoon, everyone. This is RAND. Welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Monday, April 29, 2024, after 3:15 p.m. Eastern. We'll be having a time for change call tomorrow night, Wednesday, April 30th. Around 9 p.m. Eastern. We're all on a path, and believe it or not, we're all on the same path. A lot of people will sit there and say, well, I don't believe I'm on the same path, or, I'm lost, or I just, that doesn't feel right, okay? But this is an enlightened life for all of us. Believe it or not. And it's not just about cultivating our deeper relationship with our mind. It's about getting beyond the mind. This is where we're going. When we master our mind, which we all will, we no longer live in fear. We don't have any of this that we have now. The fear, the stress, the worry, the anxiety, the dis-ease, all of it. We won't have any of that. When the mind falls from its altar, we rise to the summit. As we learn how to drop into a perpetual state of surrender, allowing the greater intelligence of this universe to run the entire show, we see how every precious moment in this life has this bigger, universal force behind it all. In seeing this, the mind totally gives up. And we realize that we have become the perfection that exists within everything. With enough awareness, we can totally stop the judgmental mind habit and wake up from the addiction. See, all of us, the majority of us on this planet, are addicted to the mind and the ego. Why do you think we have so many things? You can watch versions of yourself all over this planet. And you're just watching, you're not judging, because judging, again, is through the ego mind. So when you're watching all of these different aspects and reflections of you realize that, okay, it's not difficult after you discover for yourself that the ego mind is your master. And when you look at everything, you say, well, why is there conflict? Why is there hate? Why is there destruction? Why is all this going on? Well, it is a simple answer, but then it's a little complicated. The simple answer is the ego mind. And the ego mind is there for us to what? To master. Once we master the ego mind, and we can use it, we can direct it through our heart minds, then it will eventually vanish. We won't need it anymore. This whole game, and that's what this is with this planet and this unit. It's a game. I know that sounds strange, but that's what it is. See, because we become so connected with the body, see, in the material physical world, that's pretty much common knowledge that we all get addicted to the material physical world. And then when we get addicted to material physical world, we become slaves to the ego mind. And that's why, and then, where does the ego mind exist? It exists in yesterday or tomorrow. It doesn't exist in the now. And this is why we worry, stress, and fear. That's where it comes from. That's where the noise chatter, the mind chatter comes from. That's why we're always catapulting ourselves into the future. While we're in the now, we're in the future. So we ignore the now and we stay in the future. Or we go in the past. And this is where all that stuff comes from. All of it. Every single drop of it. Now, once we discover this, 100%, right? Not iffy, not maybe, not a little bit, but all there, 100%. Then we know that our challenge is mastering the ego mind. That's what it's about. That's why we're all here. I know it sounds strange, but we go in these bodies, and we don't remember, okay? And then we go through the life the best we can, from the programming we receive from parents, whoever, and then we leave the body. And see, where we get attached is the body. We get attached to it. Well, it may sound strange, but if you have a car, you take care of the car, and you wax and you wash and you clean it, right? Then the car's going to last longer. If you have a car and you don't take care of it, and you don't change the oil, and you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do any maintenance, you just drive it, what happens? It'll break down. Then you won't have a car. And usually because the cost of it is so high, you just say, well, what am I going to do? It's the same with our bodies. And people are like this. You can watch that. You probably have noticed it, where there's some people that treat their bodies like hell. They just don't give a rat's ass about them. Then there's other people that really pay attention, not obsession, but they pay attention to their body, and they have a really loving relationship with their bodies. So usually they will stay in the body a lot longer. It's a choice right there. The difference between it's a huge difference, but we don't think about it. It's how we're programmed. It's how you're programmed to eat, what kind of foods, environment, where you go, what you do, who you interact with. And we remove this addiction, then we begin to discover what real freedom is like. Nothing else will satisfy more than this freedom. And the true freedom is free from all forms of pain. All forms of pain. It is the greatest experience of this life. Now, this means the mind can slip back into clinging to delusion and desire. And you don't, say. The mind might do that, but you won't. The mind might crave, whine, and yearn to be free, yet you know that you are the one behind it who is actually already free. Always have been. Always, beyond, and forever. Isn't that crazy? You remain the watcher, deeply detached and liberated from the mind's antics. It's the greatest, deeply eternal loving of all when you realize that you are not your mind. And the more we practice welcoming judgment, the easier it becomes to see the mind and how to be free from it. Now, when we can always see the good, the bad, and the balanced meeting of the two, then the struggle of this life doesn't matter so much anymore. The mind soon gets trained to only see balance and perfection. It automatically observes how the good is in the bad and the bad is in the good, and how these two worlds always collide, and there is nothing left but freedom. There is just the pure observer watching and witnessing it all. That's who you really are. You're behind it all. You're behind. You watch the mind, you watch the ego. You are behind it all. Rely on the essence of your pure wisdom mind, not on judgmental perception. Rely on the spirit and meaning of the teachings, not on the words. Buddhist teaching. The enlightened, judgment-free mind is always available and shows up when we release the need to be right and instead create more room to be happy. Doesn't that make sense? Happiness through inner peace becomes the goal. Instead of striving and focusing on surviving this life. With inner peace as the priority for all of us, the dualistic mind soon becomes free from attachment, desire, resistance, and contraction. We surrender to the heart and can actually feel deeply okay with whatever manifests and does not manifest in our lives. This is an enlightened mindset, and it is not hard to achieve. It takes the most deeply rooted devotion of ourselves. We must choose to be willing to know ourselves intimately and never ever stray from exploring further about who and what we are. Now, this exploration leads to a profound honoring of the sacredness in all things in this life. We start honoring that this balanced state of perfection is everywhere, and we have nothing to complain about or try to change in ourselves anymore. Instead, we start worshiping everything around us. We see everything and everyone as the divine in physical form. We bow down to this very ordinary life and call it God. We look into a blade of grass and understand how it's just as sacred and important as our entire galaxy. To remain in a judgment-free, enlightened mind every day, we must choose to look at what cannot be looked at and revel in being totally real with our pain. If we wish to remain liberated, we must be willing to see where we are still in prison, fighting to get out. As long as we are fighting, we are still not truly free. So we must choose to always be aware of the slippery mind, because it is slippery. It's real tricky. It gets us all. We must choose to never allow the sneaky judgments to take over us again. We must choose to be 100% creatively devoted to continuously being awake, aware, and ready to step beyond a seemingly safe, judgmental world. You know, being the black sheep is a good thing, right? You know, in society you always hear, well, you know, I'm the black sheep of the family and blah, 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 right? But we, all of us, must become the black sheep of this world if we are to be truly free. See, society, you know, looks at that, it's like that's an omen or bad thing, right? No, it isn't. It's the opposite. We cannot ever agree with anyone who says that some things are just 100% bad and nothing good at all will ever come out of it. You ever heard that one? Nothing at all is ever going to come out of this. We must choose to stop all movement whenever any judgment does arise. We must choose to watch our thoughts and beliefs vigilantly. Be totally aware whenever the mind starts believing in some final truth. We must choose to do everything we can so that the ego cannot harden and cling to any opinions formed or thoughts containing right and wrong beliefs. This path takes some serious devotion since we are so attached. Blaming holds you in the energy of the duality, of victim and abuser. Forgiving is a direct way of reclaiming your power and free yourself to love beyond judgment, grace alone. Some people, maybe they already have, some people will tell you how this universe is not already in a perfect design. They might try to make you believe that you should only get what you want and nothing else. This seems like the ideal situation to be in, right? Well, the spiritual awakening process is always much deeper and more complex than it appears to be. If this universe was set up this way, the great mystery would be gone. If we should never know what a block, problem, pain, or failure was like, we would be without direction, feel perpetually numb, have no longing to dig deep inside our souls to find our life mission, creativity, and spiritual path. See, this holographic generated universe is already set up in the most intelligent manner. It's designed so that we can get a good solid taste of suffering, anxiety, or inner turmoil and use it to awaken with. Whenever we go unconscious and forget the divine all-intelligent universe is everywhere around us, what happens? We instantly suffer. Whenever we allow the mind to form any judgment and register only one side of reality, that's when our problems begin. This universe loves us so much that it doesn't care for us to live in any lie. So it wakes us up with a little stress, anxiety, or emotional pain. If we don't stop and drop our judgments, another level of suffering will soon manifest. This pain is our most perfect and most loving teacher. And by welcoming it fully, we are led back to our real state of love, enlightenment, and freedom. A lot of people will say, okay, so we're all souls in the body, yeah? Where's the God? Where's the God? God's within the soul. What is God? Pure consciousness. The one, right? The collective consciousness. You're the one. Frank's the one. April's the one. Joyce is the one. We're all one. Okay? We're part of the one. We are the God. We are the pure consciousness. Who do you think creates all the universes? The collective consciousness of all that there is, ever has been, ever will be, forever, beyond, and forever. See, and I refer to this a lot because we've got to get to the understanding of this, the deep understanding, is that because of our programming and conditioning, we're in the process of deprogramming and reprogramming ourselves. Do not delude yourself by imagining your source to be some God outside you. Your source is within yourself. Give yourself up to it. Surrender to the God you truly are. Seek the source within and merge with it. Merge with it. Come on, Marie. We all live in a world that ignores the fact It does. It ignores the fact that a supreme, divine, all-loving intelligence lives within us. We've been programmed to believe we are spiritually disconnected, and we must fix our broken selves to feel whole and reconnected again. We don't realize it, yet we are just used to feeling spiritually numb. As we have been plagued every day of our lives, by an overly materialistic society. Everywhere you look, in this now moment, I don't know, I haven't watched television in over 20 years. So I've seen how it's so advanced. It's such a brainwashing thing. It's crazy. Now, this materialistic society is constantly seducing us with its glorified, multi-billion-dollar hypnotic media programming. And what does that do for us? Well, we have contracted a deep case of spiritual amnesia. Yeah, when you clear the slate for yourself, you go within, and you look at all parts of yourself without judging yourself, being kind, gentle, generous, and humble with yourself at all times, and you view your different parts, right? You view the bad, the good, in between, and you embrace them all with deep eternal love. And then you move in deeper, and you discover the God. It's the soul and then the God within the soul. So you discover the God. You go deeper and deeper until you find the soul and then the God. When you do that, do you know that all of your past lives will be crystal clear? Yeah. They'll be crystal clear. Every one of them. See, this is not talked about much, but we have done this to ourselves. When we get on this planet, even though we've been zapped, we get on this planet and we're immediately what? Babes in the woods. And so the programming begins. And the programming comes from what? Well, where does it come from? Everything around us. Society, the human psyche. That's what society is. It's the human psyche. It's a combination of all of our thoughts, perspectives, attitudes, ideas, all bunched together. And it convinces us, okay, which is not hard to do because, remember, we're in this vulnerable state because we come into a body. The body is a baby body, and it begins to get programmed. And yet, see, we're not being programmed with what? Who and what we really are in this body from day one, from the beginning. We're not being programmed with that. We all know that. We're being programmed with everything in the material physical world. And this is why we leave our spirituality on the back burner. The everyday ignorance of our spiritual nature is the greatest lie mankind is living today. It is the cause of every moment of suffering each human being is currently in this very now moment on this planet, in it, above it, and below it, enduring. Now, one may think this spiritual drought was created by mankind, coincidentally, and is not part of the grand divine design. There's a lot of people who think that way. Nothing is by coincidence or without purpose in this universe. Nothing. This blind ignorance is within us all on purpose, so that we move more passionately towards a state of awakening. These intense levels of disconnection only drive us deeper inside ourselves to do what? To find our own soul. This lifetime that we're all in currently, in the now moment that we have, is meant to be a deeply enlightening experience. Is there anything more important for any of us than knowing how to access our own direct personal connection to an all-powerful, deeply eternal loving source of highly intelligent and creative energy that has the magical power to manifest anything our heart desires? There is nothing more vital to finding happiness in this life than knowing one's spiritual connection, and nothing more exciting than a proven way to access it, which works every time. And the irony to it is that we are God. How much closer do we need to be to discover that? Every one of us, we're already God. We're already the pure conscious. We're already the kingdom of God. We're already the heaven. Who's going to transform this planet to a God planet paradise? We are, the gods. It's never too late to connect. You know, some people say, oh, well, you know, I've spent 70, 80, 90 years, right? And a lot of people on gluttonous, frivolous, mindless activities, feeling perpetually lost in a superficial life. And the interesting thing, all that, the God source is still here. The door to divine is always open. God is waiting for you to come in. How many times have you heard that you take one step forward and God will take 10 steps towards you? The key here, discovery, a lot of people, since they're so caught up in the material physical world, they don't feel, they don't have the time to redefine their relationship with the divine. And see, the guarantee here is that your precious time will not be wasted. When I explore my own personal connection with the divine, I always first look into my heart rather than my head. I drop into my heart rather than my head. Because our heads are so full of ideas about what God is and is not. The head misses the real experience, feeling, and quality of godliness. And when the mind is quiet, still and single-pointed and pointed into the now, we can instantly find that deeply alive spiritual feeling inside of us. And because the God source already exists within the heart and at the core of our soul. As we relax into this place, a timeless, deeply eternal, loving, conscious energy sneaks into us and relaxes every cell, and fiber of our being. It is mysterious. You know, it is, you will find that God is the most mysterious thing in this universe and all universes connected. Perhaps because it is this universe, an all-connecting universe. God exists in everyone and everything, including those people you think are deeply disconnected. I mean, isn't it interesting? Haven't you ever wondered, how can such an amazing presence be so spatially close to us and still be so difficult to feel and see? It's like trying to look at yourself when you don't have a mirror. Try that one. And there's something. I think about this all the time. When I look in the mirror and I look at my eyes and I look in the eyes and I say, who's looking back at me? Well, the God. And this mirror is in everyone and everything. It's reflected to us every day. Every day. Just a phenomenal quote from Ramana Maharishi. Realization of the self is realization of God. It is not an experience of God. Rather, it is an understanding that one is God. The divine isness is the most accepting, healing, forgiving energy one could imagine. The isness is the source of deep eternal love, which when even momentarily welcomed, we instantly feel the most profound ecstatic joy inside our heart. The knowing that we are eternal spiritual beings moves through us throughout the day, like a healing river of eternal liquid love. And the very second we surrender our heart to just the idea of an eternally loving isness, we immediately find real peace, a sense of bliss, a feeling of real satisfaction that cannot be compared. Knowing this isness is our basic nature, we start radiating like the sun and start shining our own spiritual essence onto everything in our lives. Now, the only reason any of us may not feel, believe, and know that God is right here within the very center of our body, soul, and heart right now is because of one thing blocking the way. Not hard to figure this one out. It's our mind. Our overly busy, demanding, controlling, desiring mind. As long as that mind, as long as your mind is wanting something, willing something, thinking it is lacking something, trying to reach a better place other than the great isness that's here now, we will easily miss our spiritual path. We will find ourselves living in thoughts about God instead of experiencing the real divinity, that we are God. If we get too lost in the head, we might end up walking into some highly intellectual, materialistic, and spiritually dry future. The God source is infinitely complex, yet deeply simple. God is actually quite easy to experience. The understanding is learning what it takes to fully be here now. To feel the divine isness, we must first begin feeling whatever is up for us in this moment. We must choose to explore how we can let go of the mind and open ourselves up emotionally, feeling everything that is here now. When we call off the mental search, looking for God out there, which most people in this now moment do, and simply feel into the core essence of our being, we find that we have been the one who were hiding and protecting ourselves from the divine. God has always been here, is always here, radiating within every atom in existence. As we drop deeper beneath the thinking mind and through our blocked emotions, we discover the greatest source of peace, silence, and stillness. This is where God abides. Psalm 46:10, great. Be still and know that I am God. We humans are either existing in some form of suffering or living in some form of bliss. We are either in one or the other. We are either living up in our head or we are in the heart of God. And once we quiet the mind and open our hearts together, we can live a balanced life in both realms of head and heart. Doing this, we then start merging with the infinite mind of God. And when we can remain in this balance, even 24 hours a day, we will master this lifetime. Then every thought we think manifests into forming our living reality. By living in constant emotional connection with the divine from our core, we become a living bliss, breathing manifestation machine, perpetually creating every beautiful idea we feel and focus upon. There are not many things, as we all know, guaranteed in this life. Yet one thing that is 100% guaranteed is this. At some point, you are going to return to God. It will happen either when your body is still alive or when your body stops breathing. And if you haven't figured it out before you leave the body, how are you going to figure it out after you leave the body? Eventually, you'll feel intimately connected with God again, so you do not worry about when or how. All roads lead back to God. The path ahead and the past behind us both lead back to God. God is unavoidable because our past and future are just mental concepts which only exist within this living present moment. The mind alone is always blind to the divine. It is only with a quiet, surrendered mind. How do you get that one? You find a comfortable place to be in, uninterrupted. You relax into the body. You're as still as a statue and you focus on your breath, rising and falling. That's how. Eventually, you will feel intimately connected with God again. God is unavoidable because our past and future are just mental concepts which only exist within this living present moment. The mind just, it doesn't really realize how ignorant it actually is. It doesn't see how powerless, unfulfilled, and trapped it is. As this would cause a huge embarrassment to it. We will all spiritually wake up. The mind realizes its petty search in the outer world to find everlasting satisfaction is spiritually fruitless. Only when the mind surrenders to God do we discover what absolute bliss feels like. Otherwise, mind will continue to persist in its addictive habits of seeking fulfillment in this outer world. It will ignore seeing how true bliss is available here now, as it needs to continue its addictive search for years, decades, and lifetime. The mind is always trying to get its desires met by people, food, substances, money, ideas, and is in the habit of constantly yearning for something. Yet as we all know this, we've all experienced this more than once. Once the mind gets what it wants, it's happy for a short while, then is back on the hamster wheel again, searching for fulfillment again. Mind is deeply unaware that it can never, ever be just truly satisfied, content. It's good to know that whatever happens in this life, there are no real mistakes. God is an infinitely positive, creative energy, and this fierce force does not know what a mistake is. Every mistake that we perceive to be real or true is simply the mind forming another judgment. There is universal right or right. There is a universal right or wrong book, is there? There's only deeper shades of truth, in which higher layers only reveal a lighter perspective on our enlightening mission we are here to learn. So what do you believe, what do you think is why we're here? There's a lot of answers to that. A lot of people have had answers to that. The greatest goal of this life for any of us is to find that God source inside us and to find it 24 hours a day. This is the only thing which truly satisfies. Everything else literally falls vastly short. Feeling into our own personal, intimate connection with the divine is the most important thing we can do with our time each day. Everything else we do is going to be the ego seeking some form of gratification, which, of course, will not last. Beware of the ego. Truly, beware of the ego, as it is easily caught in complaints, negativity, and creating problems that weren't there before. You ever done that? You get people talking, and they'll create problems that weren't even there before. They didn't exist. So we transcend our small selves, and we step into the big self that we truly are. So we're not the material physical self. We are the God self. That's the big self. And when we finally surrender to God at the center of our souls, we will know without a doubt that we have just discovered the most amazing experience of coming home. Join you in the meditation, and I'll return to close us out. Take an easy and slow breath in through the nose, and an easy and slow breath out from the mouth. Remain still. And everything doesn't go your way. Breathe. Thank God that the ego doesn't always get its way. These challenges you're facing are opportunities to let go of attachment to the small agenda. See the bigger soul game you're here to play. The enlightened life is mainly the art of letting go. Take this with you for the rest of the day and the evening and night and the following morning. We will return here Tuesday, April 30, 2024, 3:15 p.m., around 3:15 p.m. Eastern. Last day of April. Be gentle, kind, generous, and humble with yourself at all times. Be in the highest of the highest high, deepest of the deepest deepest, purest of the purest purest. Eternal gratitude at all times. And enjoy the magic.